welcome. This is Idiot Dadz. Miguel and Austin.
I'm Austin.
I'm Miguel. And we're two idiot dads.
One gonna be a dad.
One's gonna be a dad, one's been a dad. So basically this podcast is just about, this is an advice podcast, and just talking to my friend Austin here, who is, how many months away are you from becoming a dad?
It's gonna be due it March 3rd, so 3 months.
That's how months work. Yep. So the first trick on being a dad, know when the baby's going to be born. That's just a personal trick.
I think that's overrated, really.
Yeah,
you know how some people have reveal parties, or some people just don't decide what the gender is. I think
you're just gonna come home one day and there might be a baby, there might not be.
I think like as soon as you find you're pregnant, you just tune out everything and you forget you're pregnant every day, and that way when the baby, you're like, oh, I totally forgot. It's like a surprise for everybody.
One of those episodes of I didn't know I was pregnant and the baby comes falling out at your Walmart. Just dangling from the umbilical cord. Oh, I guess today was the day.
So I know what my part would be in this podcast, because I think I would have questions. Personally, you're already a dad, 7 years now.
Yeah, I've got a little 7-year-old, and I'm a single dad, and I've been raising my daughter by myself for about 2 years. You're going to be, so I'm sure you have tons of questions. Once again, no advice that I give today or anything that Austin says today should ever be taken literal or
never.
We're just going to be, hence the title of the show, Idiot Dads. We're both idiots and we're both figuring things out at the same time. So.
I feel like this is going to be more of experience. Like, I'm going to have questions. I'm going to be like, what did you go through? Or what are some things that you have to say about this matter, or experiences that you've been through and stuff I'll probably start to be going through. And maybe people have questions on how we handled situations, or how we sucked at handling that situation.
And hopefully we'll have some more speakers on here, teenagers and things like that, so that we can get sort of a pantheon of different opinions and advice. So, for the most part, we're just going to be hashing these things out and try to figure out what's the best course of action and how to do things. So, did you have a question for me today?
I did have a question. One thing I'm really nervous about, because I'm not used to it, is how do you hold a baby?
Oh, how do you hold a baby?
A newborn baby.
I know. I mean, it's a little different when it's not your baby. You know, your wife Danny kind of made fun of you a little bit there. She's like, yeah, you know how to hold a baby. Everyone knows how to hold a baby for 5 minutes. A baby can hold a baby for 5 minutes. The question is, how do you hold a baby after 6 hours?
How do you hold a baby after 6 hours? How do you always know how to pick up that baby every single time without snapping a body member?
I know.
Because I know it sounds morbid, but that's what's going in my head.
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to hold your baby because I might break it.
Yeah. You will. I mean, they're pretty jelly. I mean, they're kind of just like flopping in the wind. You don't want to like take a turn too quickly, and then you find out like, oh, the head went that way and the baby went this way.
Like I said, it sounds morbid, but that's an honest fear.
It has happened. It has happened to people.
My wife can verify when people are like, hold a baby. I'm like, and I pick things up that are around me, and I go, I'm sorry, my hands are full, but maybe later after I get these things situated.
Yeah, sorry. No, I mean, I guess the biggest thing is when you get that baby, are you going to be in the room when she gives birth to the baby, or are you going to be in the hallway type dad?
I don't think she'll be able to let go. Like, I would be like, hon, I'm just going to sit out. No, you better not let go.
Well, you know what? And here's the thing: like, when my ex-wife had my daughter, she didn't want to hold my hand. She held my sister's hand for a while there. I mean, I held her hand for a little bit. Like,
sure, she wasn't like chanting.
Oh,
like,
probably. Uma sua. No, but no. I mean, it was. Once everything started happening, I couldn't be next to her because the nurses were right there, and I was in the room, and I was in the room with her, and I was in the room with my mother-in-law, and I was on the side of the doctor. I was behind him, and they had given her some stuff to hold. Like they gave her a towel, and she had to hold the towel. She was pulling the towel to her, so they're kind of doing tug of war between her and the nurse. And I guess it was to help push the baby out. She was on painkillers and stuff. She had gotten epidural, so she wasn't really feeling anything. This was more of just to get her body into that muscle movement. So I guess she got to see the baby come out. I got to see them cut the cord and do all that.
You didn't cut the cord?
I did not cut the cord.
So what was the reasoning behind you not cutting the cord? Because isn't that like the thing the dad does? Like you see it in the movies, you see it TV shows, you see it as like part of our culture. Like their dad always cuts the cord.
Do you want to know honestly why I didn't cut the cord?
Why?
Have you ever watched the movie Coneheads?
Yeah, but like...
Yeah, the image of that came into my head, and I was like, I can't cut the cord right now, because that's the only thing I think about was the guy taking the cord and biting it. And I was like, I can't, no. There's so much going on. I'm like, no. And so my mother-in-law actually cut the cord. Just, it freaked me out. I was just like, I can't cut a piece of my child off. I can't do it. I don't know why.
I do have a question. Maybe we can talk about another podcast or another episode of this, but what if we were having a boy? I mean, did you guys even know you're having a girl?
Yeah, we knew we were having a girl fairly early on. But yeah, if we were having a boy, I mean, I don't know why that would change anything.
Would you have decided to circumcise him?
Oh, I probably would have. In all honesty, I had a cousin who had some complications because he didn't get circumcised. I know I have a stepsister who is really against that. I don't know.
It swings both ways.
Literally. Oh, no. I mean, in all honesty, I understand the whole like, oh, it could scar the baby, but I was circumcised and I don't remember it, so I can't honestly. I can say from experience, is like I don't see how it could be a problem. I know complications can happen.
Well, I was reading this post. Like, it's a very liberal thought now. Like, this generation, anyways, likes to do things different, from the norm, especially if it's necessary. And I was reading this blog of this mother who was like, we talked about it throughout the whole pregnancy, and we decided we weren't going to circumcise our son. It wasn't necessary, and who cares if he was different? More people are not doing it now, so he's not going to be that different. And they have these reasons, and that's them. They're doing them. That's cool. The boy had complications later in life.
Yeah.
And they had to go back, and he had to get circumcised, and that was so much more traumatic for him.
You're going to remember it then, yeah.
And it was like, but I mean, at the same time, like you were saying, cutting the umbilical cords, like you couldn't even, like it's just morbid. But have you seen, like I've seen pictures and stuff that they actually strap that baby down with it, spread eagle and the arms spread so it can't move, and then they surgically, cut.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I heard it's like a traumatic experience, especially if the dad is in there watching it happen.
Yeah, I think it's more traumatic for the parents. It's one of those things where you got to remember, if you're a parent and you're watching this stuff happen, yeah, it's going to be traumatic. And then you're going to put the pain and everything with it. If you're not watching it, and you could go either way. And in all honesty, it doesn't matter. I mean, the chances of them actually having complications later in life is fairly low, but it does happen. Like I said, I had a cousin who that happened to. And I was just like, well, let's not even deal with it, and let's just get it done and over with. Better to do it now. Like, in my opinion, it was better to do it now. But if I had, for instance, if my wife would have been really against it, I wouldn't have fought for it either. It didn't seem like something that was worth fighting for. It's just more of a convenience for later. Mm-hmm. I have no religious aspect for it, so there's no reason to need to it. And I had no reason to think, oh, he's going to be different or something like that. No, I mean, and great, I had a daughter, so that issue really didn't need to come up. But I've heard the arguments on both ends, and I say, you know what? I think it's just a preference. It's just a preference of what you want to do. It's kind of the same thing like girls getting their ears pierced. Do you want to do it when they're younger and they can't feel it, or do you want to do it when they're older and it's a bigger issue? And in all honesty, either way, you're fine, because you could be 35 and get circumcised, and yeah, it sucks, but it's not gonna scar you for life. You're gonna be fine. And then
I might be scarred for life.
Well, I mean, you're gonna have a scar. You are gonna be scarred for a little while, but yeah, I mean, but it's not gonna make you never. I don't know. I don't know what it would actually make you do, but it's just one of those things. Do you risk taking the complication, or do you get it done later on? And then, like I said, the risk of complication is very low. It's probably like 1 out of like every 100 people might have a problem.
So if you decided to do it and you had a boy, would you be in the room with him to watch it?
No. Nope.
Because my stepmom had told me, like, oh, there's one person back in the day, almost cut his thing off, and now he's mute. What do you say? He's mutilated, I guess.
Yeah.
And she's like, you better make sure you're going to be in that room watching. I'm just like, I don't know if I want to see that.
Well, in all honesty, let's say you are in the room and the doctor does mutilate your child. At what point does that fix what happened? I don't think the doctor's going to mutilate your child and maybe he won't notice. You're going to notice if your son all of a sudden goes in as Sam and comes back out as Sammy, okay? You're going to notice, okay? So you being in the room really doesn't fix anything other than it makes you feel horrible.
And internally, it kind of makes me feel like a coward, too. Like, if I'm going to do that to my son, I should be in the room. Like, I don't know how everybody else out there feels.
I mean, would you feel like a coward if your son needed to get his appendix out and you're not in the room while he's getting his appendix out?
I guess that's...
I mean, it's one of those things where it's like...
Duly noted, sir.
At a certain point, like, if you go and your son needs to get stitches on his head or has a broken arm and he wants you there to hold his hand, that's your helping. But in this situation, you holding his hand or doing anything, speaking from experience as a person who draws children's blood and I do that, the hardest part is the parents. Because if the parents weren't there, a lot of times it'd be easier to draw the child. Now, the parent has every right to be there. I'm not saying they shouldn't be there.
You're saying they draw that like nervous energy from them. They're like make them even more anxious to even be there.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see like if your kid's going to be running one of these days in your living room and the kid's going to fall, he's going to bump his head. Now, you have two reactions that you can give. And 9 times out of 10, what ends up happening is the mom will freak out. So Danny will be sitting there and she'll be like, no! And then the baby's going to start crying because he's scared because you're scared. As a dude, like you've watched my daughter, she knocks herself around all the time. And most of the time she just laughs out because you don't give that reaction until you see. Is there blood coming out? No? Then we're okay. That's the best thing you can do because you just kind of let it happen, see what happens. So if you're not in there, 9 times out of 10, the child will be okay. Like if I've drawn kids, and one of the biggest things, it isn't the needle that hurts the kid. It's not anything like that. What hurts the kid is the parent freaking out and you not holding the kid right. So a lot of times if you just give a nice firm hand on them, not tight, and you're not trying to crush their hand or anything, but you get them, it makes them feel secure, and then you just put the needle in, you take the needle out, and you're done. And the kids most of the time won't even notice it, especially if you're trying to distract them or do something like that. But if you're sitting there making the child nervous. So in this case, in a baby's sense, you're not going to lessen the child's pain. You're not going to help them out in any way. The only thing you can do is be there afterwards. And then that's when you're going to help out. So my opinion of being in the room doesn't make you a coward. I think it just makes the doctor less nervous and allows him to do what he needs to do and lets him focus on what he needs to focus on. And then afterwards, you're going to be there for the kid, and then you have the problem. But once again, technically, it really isn't a needed surgery. So don't do it if you don't want to do it. If it's something you feel like you should.
I think Danielle and I discussed this at length, and I think as for us, we're going to go along with it because of our personal reasons. Nothing religious, but I think we just want to just prohibit the chance of it needing it later. And even though like some guys disagree that I see heavily on this, I don't really want him to feel different either than I am either. Because I want him to be able to feel normal, not feel like different than his dad.
Yeah. And then you get into like a lot of like parent shaming and stuff like that. I've seen that, especially with like the breastfeeding movement. I've seen that with the vaccination stuff. And though I have my own personal beliefs on the vaccination, but like stuff like the breastfeeding and the circumcision stuff, I feel like it's not born within science. It's not born within like a need for either way. So what difference?
It might have been back in the day when there wasn't as much procedures, much cleanliness.
Yeah.
It was probably so much more important to get that done right away before there was infections because the world was dirty. There wasn't a lot, things weren't sanitized like they are now.
Yeah, and back then it was a much bigger problem. You had people who needed to get this more often, and you didn't want to do it when they were 7. You want to do it when they were young, and then you don't have a problem anymore. Yeah. But I mean, you're gonna see, you're gonna find out right off the bat. Everyone's gonna give their 2 cents about whether your wife is breastfeeding or not. Everyone's gonna give once you tell somebody that your child was circumcised, I'm guaranteeing you're gonna have 5 or 6 people immediately come after you, and they're gonna ask you too. And that's where I have a problem with it. Vaccination thing, I have my own personal belief on because there's a lot more scientific evidence behind it, and there's a lot bigger purpose behind of it. But
and that's something we could discuss another episode.
That's a whole other episode.
I got so many questions for you about that.
Yeah, that's a whole other episode. But as far as that goes, I mean, you're fine either way. And I really think most people's opinions are just that. It's opinions. And first thing as a dad, you're going to have to throw them all out because your mom's going to have an opinion on how to raise your kid. Her parents are going to have an opinion on how to raise your kid. And that's how it goes. And one of the biggest things is actually holding, because going back around. So you go back to holding, and I was talking about how, my daughter was born. They take her out. She's all slimy and purple, and they put her on the thing. And
by the way, newborn babies are not cute.
No, they are not.
They're ugly.
They are hideous. They're wrinkly. They look like they're 80 years old. Don't be fooled with.
Has anybody ever actually took a picture of a baby when it was first born and compared it to their last dying year?
Yeah,
and compared the two.
They look exactly alike. I'm guaranteeing you, they look exactly alike. Little, no, about the same amount of teeth and everything. Same hair. So no, but I didn't actually get to hold Adina. I didn't get to hold Adina for a while. Because they took her away, and the doctor takes her, and then the doctor immediately gave her to her mom. And when they did that, she had her for a little bit, and then they take her away. And they had to do glucose tests and stuff like that. So they had to do the doctor thing, and then they brought her back a little bit later. I walked back to when they took her to the nursery room, and I walked past the family and did all that, but I never actually hold her. And
how long ago was it until you actually held her after being born?
I'd say about maybe 3 or 4 hours.
She was being held at that point, though.
She was being held by her mom. They were trying to feed her, and they were trying to do all that. She was being held by the doctors and the nurses. And like I said, they're going to take back and get blood. Now, it depends on the place you go. Sometimes they'll give you the baby right off the bat, and then you'll hand it to your wife or whatever. But the important thing is that the baby needs to have that skin-to-skin contact right away. So that's all in the beginning stages. Now, this is my personal experience with the actual child holding. So, you as a dad, this is what this show is about. Because you always hear tons of stuff about the mom. You as the dad, there's always, people always say, it's like, oh, as soon as I saw that child, that connection was instantly made. That did not happen with me. I did not hold Adina and automatically feel this connection with her. I held her, and when I held her, I felt like I held every other child in my life. And I was scared to death. And I was just kind of like, I don't know how to do this. And I just kind of held it like you would hold a loaf of bread. All right. It didn't happen right away. But I just kept holding her. I didn't really want to let go of her. She was a very colicky baby. And when I mean colicky, I mean 3 straight months of nonstop crying. And my, her mother, did what she could with her. But the first night, she slept on my chest. And that was probably the last good night of sleep that we had. And I laid on the little bed couch that they had there, and I just put her on my chest, and I just did. But I still didn't feel like the connection that I thought was always going to be. I always thought you were going to get this baby, and then instantly the world was going to change around you, and that you were going to feel like this is it. This is what life is about. But I never got that. Not once. It didn't happen until one day. I believe I used to work 16 hours a day. I used to drive over an hour away to and back from work, and her mother had to go to work, and so I came and got her, and she, like I said, she could not be not held. So I was so tired and so exhausted, and I was so frustrated, and nothing I did with this child made her feel comfortable, which made me feel horrible, because it made me feel like, what am I doing wrong? Until I finally just gave up, sat on a rocking chair as she was crying, and grabbed my Xbox out and started playing video games. And, I was just like, I can't do anything. I didn't put her down. I held her straight to my chest, started playing video games, and the vibrations from the controller put her to sleep.
Oh.
And in that moment, my daughter was fine. And we started doing that, and for a couple hours she was asleep. But I had to hold her so close. My arms were on fire from the way I was holding her. And so then I got up, and, she started crying again. And then I just started walking around in the kitchen. Literally my brain was, shutting down. I hadn't slept in, felt like a year. And I'm just walking around. And I start holding her. And I started holding her really tight to my chest, up straight, and walking around in circles. And I was just talking to myself, frustrated, angry at her, angry at myself. And it made her fall asleep again. And me saying the worst possible things made her fall asleep. And then in that moment, I was happy. And then I finally laid down on my bed, and she just laid on top of me like I did when we first got her. And she slept. And I slept. And I felt like I slept forever. But I would not move. My body would not let me move in that position. I remember waking up, my arms were asleep because, I couldn't move. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to roll over on her or anything.
So even during sleep, when you're not even in your conscious state, would you say that?
I don't think I ever went deep REM sleep. I was dreaming, but I was finally able just to relax and not hear her cry and do anything. And they'll tell you, 3 months, and then almost exactly to the day of 3 months, Adina stopped crying. And then she was able to sleep by herself and able to do everything. So, but it was the worst 3 months of my life.
Oh, man.
But you just got to remember, there's going to be those times. There's going to be those moments. And just holding her, and you think you're going to get these moments that they're not going to happen. It doesn't happen like it does on TV. But it does happen. And it happens in the weirdest ways. And like I said, just playing a video game. And knowing me as a person and knowing my daughter now, the fact that it was a video game explains our relationship to the T. It had to be a video game. And it explains everything about us and, how we are now. Today, we're, there's nobody I'm closer to than my daughter, and there's nobody I love more than my daughter. And, it just kind of explains, that's how I knew she was my daughter, because when I started playing video games, she was happy. And when I was, when we were walking around, I'm angry and I'm yelling at myself. And you've seen my daughter around me. I can yell at her, I can do all that, and she just smiles and whatever. She's not disrespectful, not in a way I'm not going to listen to you, but she knows, you're just dad, whatever. And so I think that kind of explains your relationship. So every child's different. Every child wants to be held differently. Mm-hmm. Dina's case was that she wanted to be held tight, she wanted to be held firm, and she wanted to move. And she always wanted to move. And, so you're going to have to figure that out on your own. Some kids don't want to be held tight. Some kids want to be sat next to you. Some kids want to, I know Asai, my oldest nephew, he did not like being held tight. What he liked was, he just liked to, I believe when I always had him, always wanted to just sit next to me. And that kind of explains his relationship to me now. He doesn't want me to hold him tight. He just kind of wants to be around me and do things with me and stuff. But, and your kid's going to have his own way.
That's
and
cool.
She wanted to be held differently by her mom. She wanted to be held differently by me. So you just gotta keep that in mind when you do it. Of course, don't throw your baby around. It's not a rag doll. You can't shake it. It will die.
And you got to always support the neck for, I don't know how long, but you have to be careful that until I think the baby is able to lift its head up.
Yeah. When you're holding up right. But if you're swaddling it, you can put it on your forearm and hold the baby up by its butt with your hand and kind of do that. I did that a lot. But a lot of times, she liked just being on my chest. If I laid back on the couch and stuff, she wanted to just have her, but she didn't want to be lower on my stomach. She wanted to be up toward my collarbone. That's how close she wanted to be. And I think that's because when you're breathing, you don't move as much. But her body was moving up with my chest, but her head wasn't moving as much. So
you think it goes close to your heart? She could hear your heart too?
Well, it was more my collarbone, so I don't think it was my heart. Once again, I think she also just liked listening to me yell and talk and all that, and that was closer to where my vocal cords are. So that's probably one of those things that she liked.
Well, she is a weird girl. So.
Yeah, she is a little strange one.
Have you ever heard of a Robert Hamilton, the doctor? He's a pediatrician.
Alexander Hamilton, the politician.
I don't know if I've heard of Alexander.
No.
Robert Hamilton. It was somebody sent me this link, and it has this doctor. He's a pediatrician. He deals with a lot of crying babies, and he had found a technique to hold the baby in such a way that they stop crying, and it's almost like a mystic art. I watch these videos, and he has these 20 kids, and they're just Wah! And then he grabs them a certain way, and they're just Wah! And they're
so
just
he's Vulcan pitching them? Is he
I don't know.
What sort of witchcraft is this? And why wasn't he around when I needed him?
You can Google it. You can find it on YouTube. It's Robert Hamilton.
See, this is the problem. YouTube wasn't as readily available as it was
Well,
when
that's fine.
Dina was around.
Well, I'm gonna read it how he does it, and it's really awkward looking, man. If you could like just see the way he holds the baby, it's weird. The way that it's described is he wraps one of the baby's arms in front of the other, and then holds them in place with one hand. And while supporting the baby's head, he leans the baby slightly forward. With the other, he grabs the baby's diaper behind and kind of just wobbles it, rocks it.
Oh, okay. And so he's basically got it like sort of a crisscross armed like baby, and he's got the baby hopefully like severely wrapped, right? Or is it just free for all?
No, he has them wrapped real well.
Okay.
He like holds on real well, but it's just like they're like a little like, I don't know, like a little Buddha statue almost, like they cross their arms and holds them, like wobbles him like wobble.
No, and that's like how like the nurses and stuff did it when Adina was born. Like they put her up tight. And maybe that was one of the things too. Maybe when you first get that baby too, you're afraid of it. You know, I mean that's how I was. I didn't want to squeeze too hard. Like burping her was like a thing. Like I couldn't. It took me a long time before I started realizing, oh, I'm supposed to like wail on this kid. Like honestly, I thought like, oh, I was doing it too hard. And I think my mother-in-law was the one who said, "Is like, no, do it harder." And so I started like doing it, and she liked it. It didn't help. By the way, don't get me wrong. It did not help at all with the crying, and it did not help her burp. But what I found was Adina liked just like, I think the motion of just like the tapping on the bed. But she, they want to be like firmly held. Mm-hmm. So sometimes you have to be a little bit stronger. One of the, that was one of the things I had to learn, the hard way is, don't be afraid to like, be tight on the baby. Once again, don't try to crush its bones, but you got to find that nice like in the middle. And I was a young dad. I mean, I was only 21, 22 when Adina was born, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was making it, and I was ended up doing most of the stuff with her. So, so it's just kind of funny like how to figure just stuff like that out. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's a lot of different ways to hold a baby. I have to look up this guy and see how he did it. Mm-hmm. Though I plan not to have any more kids. If I ever did, it'd be nice to like be able to like just Vulcan pinch them down into submission.
I guess that's the question I had today. Was there anything else that you wanted to talk about?
I mean, and we want to hear from any listeners out there. We want. I already got a Twitter account. It's Idiot Dadz. It's spelled with a Z at the end instead of an S. And
that's so hip.
Yeah, I'm a pretty cool dude. Didn't know if you knew that. And so yeah, it's just gonna be send us some questions, and then next week or whenever we get a chance to. Don't know if the show's gonna be bi-weekly or weekly yet, but when we get a chance, we'll take the best questions and kind of answer them to you. And like I said, I'm going to try and get other people in here, people of multiple kids, people, other single dads, dads of teenagers, and just kind of like, how do you handle things that are coming up? How do you handle stuff? And I know like there isn't a lot for us, for guys, and how to be a dad and how to be, handle certain things. So, yeah, so just please like contact us. Once again, that's Idiot Dadz at Twitter. Hopefully we'll have a Facebook and an email account pretty soon so that you can email us. But for right now, that's what I have. So that we can talk about this stuff and really get to know our listeners and our followers, and you guys get to know us a little bit more.
Maybe figure out what stuff worked for you. Advice for me, at least.
Oh, yeah.
You have a 7-year-old daughter. There's a lot you have to look forward to. The teen years, the preteen years.
I'm not looking forward to anything.
I got a baby on the way, but I'm sure there's things that you enjoy, hearing advice on as well for yourself.
Oh, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, when you become a parent, you have to learn that there's always something else to learn. There's always something else to know. Don't ever think that you've got it all figured out. Every kid's different. I don't care if you have 15 kids. Not every one of those kids are going to come out and they're going to be like, oh, you're going to cookie cutter it up. It'll get easier, but there's always going to be something different. Each personality is different, especially the more you go. I mean, the way Adina was when she was first born to how she is now, I would have never have guessed that that's the route that my daughter would like turn into. Unfortunately, she turned into a cookie cutter version of me. She looks just like her mom and she acts just like me. So I was like, oh great. I was hoping that would not happen. So, but you know, we just gotta you kind of roll with the punches, you know, especially young dads too. That's a big thing that this is kind of heading out toward. You know, there's going to be stuff that we, you know, as a younger guy, you're not going to know. I mean, I envy guys who are like in their 30s and 40s having kids because I know they're going to be 10 times better of a first-time dad than I ever was. You're not going to have the stress and the aggression and everything else that comes with being a dad. I mean, you're even older than I was when I had a child, and you're a lot better than what you were at 22. Can you imagine when you were 22 having a kid?
Oh, God.
See, so the nice thing is, like, I want this to be a show for people who are going into that stage and who actually want to be active parts of their children's lives and want to be, you know, a good father figure. Hopefully not just a guy who has kids and then, oh, I'm bailing, you know, or leave at home with the mom. I'm gonna go drinking out. Like, that's not, like, I'll never give that advice. I do not agree with that kind of mentality. But also, if you are that kind of guy and you want to be better, hopefully this is kind of a show that can show you that, you know, yeah, you need to be more active in your child's life because everyone needs a dad. And my dad was, you know, he was a great dad. He was a cold dad, but I loved him, and you know.
That's the thing. Like, every dad's different. Like, you might have had a cold dad, but as long as he gave a good effort in raising you and taking care of you, like, and that's all that matters. You know, my relationship with my dad is like, it's really weird, but it's not bad necessarily either. I think it took us about 18 to 20 years to actually get to know each other. And we butt heads so much.
And you know what? That's kind of like the thing that I've seen. You know, a few generations back. I mean, I guess that was sort of like the idea was like, you know, you mostly had most of your relationship with your mom, and then as you got older, when you hit your teen years or your later teen years, that kind of switched over to your dad. You know, you always saw the dad as like this, you know, other figure, like the ultimate figure in the family. And, you know, I'm talking about, like, you know, the old, like, 1950s sort of idea of a family. But now we're not in that case. And that was sort of something I had to learn. Like, for instance, in my case, my father didn't have a father. He had a father, but he died when he was, like, 5. And so my dad was raised by a hodgepodge of his 16 brothers and sisters and nephews and his mom and all this stuff. So he didn't have, like, a father figure to kind of know completely how to be with me. And so my dad's reaction for me was go to work. It was great because it taught me how to work, but as far as like seeing what, like, you know, baseball games and stuff like that the other kids got, I didn't do that.
I think that's cliche too. I think like people gotta understand that you don't always follow the cliches. There's different ways to raise a kid, and there's different ways to get to know a kid. You know, it's not just about baseball games and catch.
But see, and that's kind of my point. Like, you know, and then now I have a completely different relationship with my child than I would have ever imagined because I'm both the mother and the father for my child. You know, she does get to see her mom, you know, occasionally, but for 90% of the time, I'm the only one there. And so all of a sudden I had to go from being like, oh, hey, what's going on, to being like, you know, I had to be there. You know, I'm doing sleepovers. I'm talking to other moms and planning parties and getting princess dresses and doing manicures and hair. And I'm like, I don't know any of this stuff. I don't know how to do any of this stuff, but I guess I'm the one who has to do it. And you kind of learn all this stuff, like, you know, and yeah, that's kind of the point. Like, that's what I wanted the show to be. I want it to be sort of like this.
I think it's a great start. Next episode, we should probably flop questions too. Like, maybe there's something that you want to talk about.
Oh yeah, you know? I'll have questions to give, but yeah, this is sort of like the first go at it. So please get back to me. Let me know what you guys think. You know, suggestions for the show, what we can bring on and stuff.
Advice you have or advice to give. Yeah,
and we'll read them on here and kind of talk about them. And once again, this isn't. You should never take the advice. This is more of a place where you can get ideas, like just how, you know. This is more of a free space to talk, and we'll say good stuff, we'll say bad stuff, and everything in between. My name's Miguel.
And I'm your idiot dad, Austin.
And just don't break the baby.